what could I do to maintain motivation for movement? And when was the last time I enjoyed physical activity for the sake of it? And that was, when I was a kid. So when I wasn't exercising, you would be going out to play, and you weren't telling your friends one day to the next, you know what, I don't really want to go out today and play because I'm really sore from climbing trees and piggyback carrying yesterday and playing tag, and I need my recovery day. The conversations were just around, do we enjoy this? Is there an element of risk? Okay, let's try it out.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We're your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey everybody, I'm Hilda Labrada Gore, and my guest today is Darryl Edwards. Darryl is a natural lifestyle educator and the creator of the Primal play method. He is all about making activity fun so that we get healthier, fitter, and stronger along the way of our health journey. Darryl is the author of the recent bestseller, Animal Moves. Let's be honest, most of us don't move at all, let alone move like animals. We all know we need to move more. We drive to work, we sit at our desks, drive home, and then turn on the TV. Today, Darryl gives us some practical ways to get into a new groove of movement that will make us not only more fit and strong, but can also help reverse disease, benefit our hormones, our mood, and even our gut microbiome. Before we get into the conversation, we want to recognize our sponsors. Are you wondering where to start when it comes to healthy eating? Get the basics on the Wise Traditions diet. The Weston A. Price Foundation has come up with a primer of sorts. It's 7 easy lessons on how to eat a nourishing diet. The best part? These lessons are available for free. Just go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the green button that says, Get the Basics of the Wise Traditions Diet. Sign up, and they'll come to your email inbox, free of charge. It's that easy. The Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. New Zealand-sourced liver, organ meats, and bone marrow in convenient gelatin capsules. Order yours today at ancestralsupplements.com. And Green Chef. This episode is brought to you also by Green Chef. For $50 off your first box of Green Chef, go to greenchef.us/wise. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Darryl.
Hi, how you doing, Hilda?
I'm doing great, and all the more so because we're talking today. I met you about 1.5 years ago at a conference, and I think I even took one of your Primal play workshops. And at that time, I just thought, oh my gosh, this guy totally knows what he's talking about. I can't wait to have him on the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready for sure.
I knew you would be, actually. So, Darryl, let's get right into it. I understand that you were rather unhealthy, and you discovered that movement was the missing piece of the puzzle. So you started getting active before you even addressed the dietary part of your health. Can you tell us what happened, how you got to that place, and what changes came about?
Yeah, so my background was actually in technology, working within investment banking. So I had a very lucrative job, very demanding work, as you can imagine. And part of that meant I was sitting at my desk for 16 to 18 hours a day, pretty much 7 days a week. And I was also on call 24/7. So it meant at any stage I could go to bed for an hour and get a phone call and be up until the early hours the next morning. So that was the environment that I was in. And I was fortunate enough to have annual health checks that cost a small fortune, but I had a really great snapshot on my health. And one year, I was literally dragged off the treadmill doing some like a stress test, a treadmill stress test, wearing an EKG or ECG, as we say here in the UK, and was told to get off the treadmill because they were concerned about my cardiovascular disease risk. And they later told me that I was pre-diabetic, I was hypertensive, so very high blood pressure. I had elevated cardiovascular disease risk. My lipid profile was really poor. I was anemic. I mean, they just listed out like a serious amount of issues. And I was like, what's happening here? You know, I'm a relatively young guy. Why is this occurring? And the sort of the first answer was it's genetic. You know, we're looking at some of your close family members. They're all suffering from you know, a lot of these chronic lifestyle issues, and now it's your turn. So I asked, okay, what's the solution? And I was told, you know, we'll take some beta blockers for your blood pressure, some metformin for your blood glucose issues, to manage your blood sugars. We'll give you some statins to control your cholesterol, some iron supplementation for your anemia. And I was also suffering with chronic low back pain and knee issues. So I was told to wear a back brace and take, you know, significant amount of pain relief. So that was a scenario. And the only reason I didn't take my doctor up on the offer was because I was concerned about the side effects. So I was kind of like, I know I need to do something because this sounds pretty serious. I didn't really know much about the health implications at the time, but I knew it was serious. You know, my doctor was fairly alarmed at what had come back from all the kind of blood tests.
Yeah, and having to pull you off the treadmill, I guess that was a sign that something was kind of serious.
It was like, you need to see a cardiologist right away. It was that sort of, that was the that's what I was told. Don't move at all. Don't do any exercise. I'm not doing much anyway, doctor. But you know, so what happened next was I asked a question about lifestyle and was told, oh, there isn't really much you can do. But I do remember reading at some point in the past about exercise and blood pressure, that exercise can actually reduce hypertension, high blood pressure. So I was like, hold on a second, I'm very, very sedentary in my job. I rarely move from my desk. Maybe there is something that I can do to at least manage my, you know, hypertension, my blood pressure. So within a few weeks, I started exercising, and within a few weeks, my blood pressure came down. I bought a blood pressure monitor so I could test myself at home, and my blood pressure came down from very high blood pressure down to relatively normal. And when I was retested about a month or so later, my blood sugars had also normalized. So within 30 days or so, my blood sugars had come down to normal. So I was no longer pre-diabetic, and my blood pressure had come down to almost optimal.
So what kind of movement did you do? You were very inactive. So what kind of movement did you start doing?
I literally just went to my gym. I started lifting weights and doing some cardio, relatively high intensity protocol, because I was short on time. You know, I was like, I've got 30 minutes in the gym. I need to do as much as I can in a short space of time. That was literally the only way I could get things done. So I recognized that I had to be fairly general in what I did. Right. I didn't just want to run on a treadmill for 30 minutes. I didn't just want to lift weights for 30 minutes. So it was a combination of the two. And it was relatively high intensity because I recognized me going for a stroll for 30 minutes wasn't really going to cut it. So that was the first intervention based around physical activity. And I continued that and saw significant improvements in my fitness, but also in my health markers as well, in the biomarkers of health. So with that success and without the pressing need to go on the meds, you know, I had my lipids done, you know, about say 60 days later, they had improved as well. So I was like, you know what, I need to start thinking about what I can do to support my physical activity in terms of nutrition. So I was like, let me start thinking about getting into shape, you know, let's see what else I can do around this. And so I actually started doing something called the zone diet, believe it or not. So this was probably early 2000s. So I started doing the zone diet, and I it wasn't sustainable for me because I was getting very neurotic about counting almonds and weighing and measuring my food to meet all the macronutrient ratios that were required for that diet. Like 40, 30, 30 was the macronutrient ratios. And it was just ridiculous. Like I could only have 9 almonds, not 10. You know, and I had to have, you know, it could only be 120 grams of steak. I'm not sure what that is in ounces, but, you know, it could only be a certain amount of steak. So I was like, this isn't sustainable. And there was no emphasis on food quality either. So I came across a book by Lauren Cordain called The Paleo Diet. And there was something about that resonated with me in terms of the quality of the food, in terms of foods aligned to our ancestral heritage, And also the fact that, our caveman ancestors, which is the premise of that book, would also be very active. They'd be taking part in physical activity in order to obtain these healthful foods. So I was like, it just resonated with me. I started a paleo type diet, and that was really where I would say things have started to come together. My mindset changed around living a healthier lifestyle. So fast forward on sort of 15 years now that I've been living this lifestyle, I've pretty much maintained a similar dietary template. I've refined very much what I do in terms of movement. I recognize that I was most passionate about movement. So I started studying nutrition, became a nutritional therapist. I became a physical, PT. And then I left investment banking once I got fed up of being asked questions and not being able to answer them because I didn't know enough. So I was like, I need to start learning and cross-training in relation to this so I can actually become an expert on this and advise clients on how they can improve their lifestyle. Then I left to do what I do now.
Well, that's great. And now you are an expert. I know that you've developed the Primal Play method and you have your book out, Animal Moves. Can you explain to us this whole movement component? For example, why do you emphasize play as opposed to working out? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so the main reason is, when I started on this journey, I went straight into kind of hardcore, the sport of fitness, right? Like I was very competitive in my work and I took that into the gym. So I wanted to compete. I wanted to do as much as I could. I wanted to be number one on the leaderboard. The downside was for me, I was getting injured. I also didn't enjoy the process. I only enjoyed the end result. So I think many people can have a very brief love affair with exercise, and it's not necessarily sustainable for whatever reason, whether you get injured or whether you just get bored or you can't find the time. There's always a reason as to why exercise can become very secondary to the rest of your life. And now my understanding is that exercise is actually, it's an artificial construct for humans. It's developed, or exercise was developed in a relatively modern era to make up for a lack of physical activity that came from your normal life. So as we become more sedentary, as we become, chained to our desks, so to speak, as we enter the industrialized revolution, for example, we become less active. And you take it right through to the 21st century, and there's very little requirement to move. Certainly for, physical labor, there's an absence of that. We don't tend to have to use our hands to, and our physical selves to earn a living. Many of us don't anyway. So there's an absence of that. So because we recognize there are health benefits in being physically active, exercise was devised.
Yes, you're right. I look at pictures of people from the 1930s and 40s and 50s, and I don't see people who are looking overweight. Now, I know they were eating differently than we are today, but also movement was a part of their day-to-day. If somebody worked on a farm, they were using their arms and strength to move hay bales, or if a woman was going to get food for her family, she had to walk quite a bit. And with the Industrial Revolution and changes in our workspace, I guess, suddenly the demands were for us to use our brains more than our bodies. And I guess that's part of what's led us to where we are today.
Yes, exactly. That's a significant reason as to why. So there's an absence of a requirement to move. And so exercise, if exercise is being given, is made the proxy or the substitute for that, some people can gravitate towards it and do really well, very high levels of self-discipline, very highly motivated. I love exercise, but the majority of us would rather just stay on our couch and watch, serial reruns or do something else with our time. Or we'll sign up to the gym in January when we're highly motivated for New Year's resolutions. And then by the end of Jan, we've kind of given up the will to live in relation to whatever the exercise program was, even though we were so enthusiastic at the beginning of January. So there's something about exercise which is deemed to be a chore, punishing ourselves for what I ate the night before. That tends to be the reason for many of us as to why we take part in exercise. Very short term, how great can you look in 28 days, 6-pack abs for the beach.
Mm-hmm.
body, that tends to be the references we see all around us, and not many of us can get on with that. I started thinking about this when I started getting bored in the gym. And I was like, hold on a second, I'm really motivated to be physically active. I saw the impact it had on me in a very short space of time. It's meant that I've been meds free now for 15 years, or at a time maybe sort of like 6-7 years into my journey at that point. But I was like, why am I starting to begrudge going to the gym now? That's not healthy. I just started thinking about what could I do to maintain motivation for movement, and when was the last time I enjoyed physical activity for the sake of it. And that was when I was a kid. So when I wasn't exercising, you would be going out to play, and you weren't telling your friends one day to the next, you know what, I don't really want to go out today and play because I'm really sore from climbing trees and piggyback carrying yesterday and playing tag, and I need my recovery day, and how many sets and reps are we going to do when we play today? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The conversations were just around, do we enjoy this? Is there an element of risk? Okay, let's try it out. That's what the motivation was. And normally my mother was angry most summer nights, because she'd be calling us in, and we'd be like, 5 more minutes, Mom. No, we don't want to eat dinner. We're happy to play. So I have this nostalgic memory of my childhood, for one, but I also recognize there was a significant amount of physical activity in my day. So I remember those times, and I wanted to regain and reclaim that again as an adult. And that's how Primal Play came about.
And you probably realized that there were other people in your same boat, that they weren't looking forward to going to the gym, or they were simply inactive all day. And you probably looked around and realized you weren't the only one feeling this way, and that nobody was playing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, play is definitely seen as superfluous for many adults, or we create these adult versions of play, which when you think about playing cards, or gambling, or going to nightclubs, or that tends to be, or drinking alcohol, that tends to be what we reference when it comes to playtime for adults, and we've just lost the essence of that. And when you think about other mammals, if you own a pet, dogs will play not just when they're puppies. They'll play when they're adults too. And other mammals do so, and they'll play with their offspring, and they'll play with their peers. And for humans, we want to create this structure to make it official. So we play sport. But even with something like sport, most people are spectators when it comes to sport, not participants. So even for sport, which can be very engaging, we prefer watching people do than doing it ourselves.
But do we prefer watching? I mean, that's a good question. Maybe we've just been socialized to do so,
I think we do. I do think we prefer to watch it, because usually we can see people who are far better than we are at a particular craft. So that in itself is appealing. I can watch the Olympics. I can see the fastest man on the planet with Usain Bolt. I can see very athletically, physically literate individuals do their best, supermen and superwomen doing what they can. I suppose many of us feel it's better to watch and enjoy the spectacle of that, and occasionally there'll be some enthusiasm to say, oh, maybe I could train to do that, or maybe that could be a hobby or a pastime. But that isn't what we need as human beings. We need to integrate more movement into our day, from day to day, because if it becomes a pastime or a hobby, what will happen is real life will become priority. It will be second. It will always be second best. That's why I believe sport and even exercise as a concept is already disadvantaged. We have to book in our gym sessions. We've got to hopefully be okay at the end of our working day to find time for the gym. Think about gyms. The model for gymnasiums around the world, gym chains, aren't based on people participating. They're based on people signing up.
Coming up, Darryl reveals the 3 must-have attributes for your physical activity in order to get the most benefit for your health.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Green Chef. We all want to eat well, but our time is limited. This is where Green Chef comes in. Green Chef is a USDA-certified organic company that includes everything you need to easily cook delicious meals that you can feel good about. Let Green Chef do the meal planning, grocery shopping, and most of the prep for you week after week. Everything is hand-picked and delivered right to your door. Recipes are quick and easy with step-by-step instructions, chef tips, and photos to guide you along. Meal plans include paleo, vegan, vegetarian, keto, gluten-free, omnivore, and carnivore. And you can switch up your meal plan and change the box you're getting when you want. I'd never done a meal delivery kit before, and I have to admit, I was super impressed by Green Chef. Our family made the chicken tinga recipe just last night. It had a wonderful chipotle flavor that we all absolutely loved. And the slaw was also a hit. And my kids were happy to get some of the leftovers in their lunch today. Everything tasted really great, which is no surprise since Green Chef's ingredients are high quality and sustainably sourced. For $50 off your first box of Green Chef, go to greenchef.us/wise. And Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements offer New Zealand-sourced bone marrow and nose-to-tail organ meats like liver, heart, kidney, pancreas, spleen, and more in simple, convenient gelatin capsules. Traditional peoples and early ancestral healers believed that eating the organs from a healthy animal would strengthen and support the health of the corresponding organ of the individual. In other words, a person with a weak heart was fed the heart of a healthy animal. A person with urinary ailments would be given kidney from a healthy animal, and so on. I know I don't get enough organ meats in my own diet personally, so I went ahead and got some of these supplements for myself and my family. So visit ancestralsupplements.com today to see what it can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. So Darryl, talk to those of us who are feeling like, yes, oh my goodness, we feel chained to our desk. Our enthusiasm for exercise is waning. How do we get more of this play mindset?
Well, firstly, you've got to find what you enjoy when it comes to movement. What you enjoy, which is challenging. For the human body to benefit from physical activity, there has to be some form of overload principle. You know, there has to be a way for your body to encounter this physical stressor, and adapt to it. So the adaptation to physical activity is what makes us healthier. It's what improves our fitness. So that's the first suggestion. Secondly, avoid convenience. So if you avoid convenience, it means you're more likely to take part in movement, which is kind of incidental. So rather than relying on your 30 minutes or 1 hour in the gym 3 times a week, you can start thinking about what can I do every single day, which means I have to avoid convenience. So avoiding convenience could be, I'm not going to take the elevator or the escalators. I'm going to start taking the stairs. I'm not going to take relatively short car journeys that I could definitely walk. It's making those type of decisions. It's deciding, I've got my remote control, but I won't have it right next to me. I'll make sure it's the other end of the room. So if I am watching TV, I have to get up from my chair and walk across to the other side of the room to pick up the remote. And maybe during commercial breaks, I'll start doing some squats or some push-ups. So start thinking about how you can just break up sedentary time and convenience is also important. And probably the third would be, if you're somebody who's really interested in nutrition, which the majority of your audience are going to be, think about exercise in the same way. What do you need to take on board to improve the nutrition that you're getting from movement? In other words, what intensities do I need to take part in? What durations do I need to take part in? How often, when, what time of day?
Right, because we do have to be intentional. We can't just expect that we're going to exercise because we thought about it for a second. We do have demands on our life with our jobs and our families, so we have to be intentional, but that doesn't mean taking the fun out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So seeking out what you enjoy is a great idea. But it has to be, as I say, it has to be challenging, because if it's just something you enjoy, it may not be physically beneficial. So if I just enjoy going for walks, for example, if I've been very sedentary, if I've been a couch potato for 20 years and I go for a walk around the block, that may be something that I struggle to do, to walk a block. But after some time, that's going to be relatively easy. And I have to start thinking about increasing the distance for it to offer the same sort of benefit. And so that's really what I'm talking about here.
Nice.
If you find something that you enjoy, make sure you're constantly pushing the boundaries, ensuring that you're getting a physical challenge, making sure you're getting out of breath, making sure there's some perspiration, that you're sweating, making sure that you are getting some muscle soreness because you want your muscles to be adapting to that work, making sure that you are going through full range of motion, so you're improving your flexibility and mobility, which is important as we age, making sure you're engaging in balance and coordination. There's lots of things that we need to take on board in terms of all these ingredients that are needed from a movement practice.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what happens as we age? Can we keep playing and staying strong? That's kind of the end goal, isn't it? Staying strong and playing all of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, the diseases of aging, many of those are associated with, the kind of physical decline that can occur, whether it's postural changes, whether it's, decreases in bone density, sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass, the hormones that are less and less effective as we age, that we lose, whether it's testosterone in men and obviously, estrogen and progesterone in women post-menopause, for example. So there are all these things that we chase and that we believe are keys to maintaining age and kind of youthfulness and vitality. But many of those aspects are definitely underpinned by physical activity. So testosterone is increased based on intense physical lifting, for example. Human growth hormone, which is a repair hormone, that increases based on certain types of physical activity. Our mood and cognitive function, so we can reduce cognitive decline by being more physically active. So there are benefits not just to our body composition, but also to cognitive function too, to mood as well as, cognitive ability. So when you start thinking about exercise in this way, in the healthful way, you recognize there is no part of us that isn't affected by physical activity.
Didn't you even tell me earlier that physical activity affects our gut microbiome?
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, I'm happy to talk about some of the science here, but there was some interesting research. One I'll talk about involves some rugby players. So rugby players, if you don't know what rugby is, for my cousins in the US, imagine American football without wearing all of that gear.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so it's a similar shaped ball. You're outside, but you're just not wearing, that kind of exoskeleton to play. And so they took these very fit individuals and they controlled for diet, and they saw that the fittest individuals, based on VO2 max, which is your ability to process oxygen. So the more aerobically fit you are, that contributed to 20% increase in diversity and volume of the gut microbiome in relation to health, promoting bacteria. So just the physical activity component was attributed to that 20% difference in the fitter individuals over those who were less fit within the same team. There's lots of those studies now available. There's another one I came across recently as well. Rats who were basically given the gut microbiome of rats with celiac disease. And so these rats given celiac disease, some rats were on a treadmill being forced to exercise, and there were other rats who were exercising optionally, i.e. there was enjoyment as part of that. So mice or rats love treadmills. Actually, they gravitate towards them when they feel like running. So the rats that were forced to exercise had no improvement in their gut flora, even though they were exercising. But the rats who were exercising optionally, doing pretty much just as much as the forced rats, had improvements. They were reversing their celiac disease.
Oh,
which is incredible. Yeah.
that is.
So
Interesting.
Yes. So there's lots of very interesting research in relation to this. And it's something that I'm passionate about because I wanted to understand what some of the underlying mechanisms were. So even for things like inflammation, for example, exercise in the short term elevates a lot of these pro-inflammatory markers. But post-activity, when the body's healing
Yeah.
from that activity, there's a significant reduction in chronic inflammation. So systemic inflammation is reduced for those who are more physically active, which again is really interesting. So many people would assume that exercise can be pro-inflammatory, can be dangerous, can be, we're doing too much, we've got to be concerned about it. But for the majority of individuals, we're not doing enough of the right type. And if we are, then you are going to be getting significant anti-inflammatory benefits as well. So all the markers you could look at in a lab based on your nutritional profile, by adding this really good movement nutrition as well, you can also garner improvements, improving your gut flora, immune system regulation. So your ability for your immune system to do its job correctly can also benefit from physical activity. And then you've got all of the more well-known benefits, such as improving, insulin sensitivity and blood glucose regulation. That can also be modulated through exercise. Lipids, for example. So if I'm sitting all day and I stand, even briefly, that will actually start breaking down triglycerides. Just that process of contracting muscle from sitting to standing releases something called lipoprotein lipase, which breaks down fatty acids, including triglycerides. So, there's all of these powerful agents that come from muscle contraction. So yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. And I don't really kind of, dazzle the audience too much. But in terms of the science piece, if there's one thing for the listeners to focus on, if they want to do a bit of research for themselves, it's something called myokines, myokines. So these myokines are almost hormonal agents, chemical messengers that come from muscle contraction. And it's these agents which actually promote healing signals, not only to muscle tissue, but also to organs around the body. These agents are responsible for some of the benefits of, say, lowering blood sugar in muscle tissue, and promoting healing and reducing the risk of atherosclerosis in the heart vessels, for example. So these agents, and there are many of them categorized as myokines. So yeah, so that's probably the main. There's one thing you need to remember if you want to dig deep into the science, it's to research the role of myokines.
Wow, this really is fascinating, and I like the term you used a moment ago, Darryl, when you said movement nutrition. I guess there's a sense in which movement nourishes our body in a way that is similar to how food nourishes our body.
Yes, for sure. I mean, if you think about it, we can't deny the synergy. So from an ancestral point of view, the synergy is if you didn't move, you weren't going to eat. You weren't going to find food, and let's say that you weren't going to source food. If you didn't move, there was no sourcing of food. Even the youngest of babies have to move in terms of moving their mouth to be able to obtain milk from their mother, right? That's the base level requirement for a newborn baby, is to move to be able to obtain food. Secondly, the process of the heart working efficiently means that it's pumping blood around the body, which means your body has access to those nutrients that have been digested. So that process, of the blood is what transports nutrients. It isn't, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
to the rest of the body. So we focus on the gut, we focus on what we put in our mouths, but there's a significant amount of processing that occurs because of the body's ability to move. So there's a common sense of, well, what did we do to be able to access these really good, helpful foods? We had to hunt and gather, or scavenge. So Hippocrates mentioned that if we could find the right balance of exercise and food, that would lead us to perfect health. Not too little or not too much. So it's this symbiosis that's really important. How can we ensure that we're doing just enough, and we're eating just enough of the right types of foods, and we're moving in the right way to ensure that we're more healthful and leading to better well-being.
Well, and that is definitely our goal. So I was just thinking while you were talking, Darryl, I would love for us to share some YouTube videos of some of this movement that you've been talking about, some primal play and that sort of thing, so we can really get a handle on how we can have a play out and not just a workout, and how we can benefit from the movement and nutrition you've been discussing. Can you give us some of those videos to set up in the show notes?
Yes, for sure. I'll send you a few links, and if you go to my website primalplay.com, there's lots of information there. I do have a section called Movement as Medicine. So, it's very easy to talk about this, but not necessarily as easy to back it up with an evidence base. So I have a significant research section on my site talking about some of these factors. I speak about them at many conferences too. And I also have lots of examples, because sometimes, we don't need to read anymore. We just need to implement what we know.
Well, this has been super stimulating, and you've given us a lot of food for thought. I want to ask you now, if the listener could do one thing to improve their health, Darryl, what would you recommend that they do?
I would say think about, spend less time thinking about exercise and spend more time thinking about movement. And for movement, start thinking about building a well-rounded, kind of a whole movement approach to physical activity. So start thinking about all of those components of movement that you need every single day that will lead to vitality. And that will make it easier for you to avoid convenience. And it'll make it easier for you to integrate movement into your life, rather than just thinking about, the 1 hour I have to spend in the gym. 3 times a week, you can start thinking about all the little things that you can do to get more movement minutes into your day.
Well, that sounds really wonderful. I know I feel motivated to incorporate more of what I love, more movement that I love into my life. And thank you for the challenges that you threw down today. It's been a great conversation, Darryl.
You're very welcome. And thanks so much for an interesting interview. Thank you.
My guest today was Darryl Edwards. For more on Darryl, you can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Fitness Explorer. And on Facebook under Darryl F. Edwards, you will find him. You'll also find links to his social media platforms, along with the promised YouTube videos we talked about, and his book on our website. Just go to the podcast page and look for the show notes for episode 153. On that same page, you'll see our listener survey. Please fill it out for us. It will just take a second or two to do so, and it would mean the world to us. We're just trying to get to know you a little bit better so we can make sure our shows are hitting the mark. And thank you. Finally, when you get a chance, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Next week, we speak with Karen Volkening-Behegan, everybody, about her potluck streak. What am I talking about? She has had monthly potlucks for the past 8 years without missing a month. She is amazing. What is her goal? To help people understand the benefits of nutrient-dense food and to build community around these meals. This has been Karen's secret as the leader of the Pasadena chapter of the Weston A. Price Foundation. And you guys, she's been doing it for so long with such a streak, you're going to want to hear her secrets for building community and health one meal at a time. Finally, a quick thank you to our faithful team of podcast interns. Post-production assistants include Cassie Reeve, Diva Rizvi, Melanie Ahern, and Ari O'Hara. Cheryl Huftelin helps with social media. Mary Hine, Olga de Villiers, and Joy de los Santos boost sponsorship and help with special projects. Our listening team includes Heather Carpentier and Victor Coseto. Amy Matias helps with transcriptions. And our music for the show is from Michelle Bloom's CD Big Backyard. Find out more about her music at allthingsbloom.com. That's it, everybody. So keep in touch. I'm on Instagram at holistic_Hilda. Follow me for health tips, podcast stuff, and behind the scenes on the show, and me. Hey, and if you're still listening, I want to tell you that my new book is coming out. It's called Podcasting Made Simple. You can pre-order it on Amazon just by looking for the book Podcasting Made Simple. It's authored by me and my friend Charlie Burney. Thanks for listening, everybody. Let's keep in touch, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening today. We have all kinds of resources to support you on your health journey. On the Weston A. Price Foundation website, you'll find podcasts, blogs, articles, and brochures related to just about any health topic you can imagine. You can also find a local chapter to help you discover sources of real, organic food in your area. And you can become a member to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism. Visit westonaprice.org for all this and more. And remember that the Wise Traditions podcast is available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.